Welcome back to my YouTube channel Coin Secrets. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a single copper penny is quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can in the garage. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, if you knew what to look for, that same penny could be worth up to $684,000. Not a typo. Not a fantasy. A real, documented market value. And here's the unsettling part. Millions of people may have already touched this coin without realizing what they were holding. So before you dismiss this as another coin story, ask yourself one uncomfortable question. What if you've already spent one of the most valuable pennies in modern American history? Welcome to the hidden world of the 1998 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin so deceptively simple that it has escaped attention for decades, yet so rare in its era characteristics that elite collectors aggressively compete for it today. This isn't just a story about a coin. This is a story about awareness, timing, and how wealth often hides in places we overlook every single day. And if your goal is to turn forgotten objects into financial leverage, you're exactly where you need to be. In Act 1, we start with what everyone thinks they know. The year 1998 feels recent. It doesn't sound historic. It doesn't sound rare. Many people assume coins from the late 1990s are common, disposable, and barely worth face value. That assumption alone has caused countless valuable pennies to slip through fingers unnoticed. During this time, the U.S. Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents, but a small number escaped the system with critical minting errors, and some were struck without a visible mint mark, despite conditions where precision should have been flawless. That's where opportunity quietly entered the room. Here's where the tension builds. Mint errors are not mistakes in the casual sense. They are anomalies, mechanical deviations that occur under very specific circumstances. In 1998, certain pennies were struck with alignment issues, doubled dies, planchet irregularities, and die deterioration that created dramatic visual distortions. These errors were never meant to reach circulation, yet a handful did. And when error coins reach the public, history shows one thing very clearly: the market eventually explodes. Collectors don't chase perfection. They chase rarity. And nothing is rarer than a mistake that was never supposed to exist. Now let's pause for a quick reality check, because this is where people usually lose focus. You might be thinking, it's just a penny. How much could it really matter? That thought right there is exactly why fortunes are missed. Let me put it this way: if someone offered you a winning lottery ticket and said, "It looks boring, but trust me," would you throw it away because it didn't look exciting enough? Of course not. Yet people do that every day with rare coins. Funny how the smallest things carry the heaviest consequences, isn't it? Act 2 is where excitement takes over. Once collectors identified these 1998 no-mint mark error pennies, demand didn't just rise, it intensified. Auction houses began tracking them. Private collectors began paying premiums. Grading services confirmed their authenticity. And suddenly, a coin that once passed unnoticed became a symbol of modern numismatic wealth. Today, pristine examples with strong error characteristics and professional grading have reached current market valuations as high as $684,000. That's not speculative hype. That's real money changing hands. Here's what makes this even more powerful. Unlike gold bars or luxury assets, this coin doesn't scream wealth. It whispers it. It hides among ordinary change. That creates urgency, because every year more of these pennies disappear into melting bins, overseas shipments, or simple neglect. The supply isn't shrinking slowly, it's vanishing. And as supply collapses, demand does what it always does. It rises sharply. This is how collectors think. This is how markets move. And this is how quiet wealth is built. Let me ask you something that might make you smile, but also think. How many times have you checked your pocket for spare change and felt disappointed? Now imagine that same pocket check turning into the discovery of a six-figure asset. Not bad for something smaller than your thumbnail. That contrast, that shock, is exactly what keeps serious collectors awake at night. Because they know opportunity doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It shows up dressed as normal. As we move toward Act 3, the message becomes crystal clear. This isn't about luck. It's about positioning. People who build wealth through rare coins aren't gamblers, they're observers. They understand that history, errors, and scarcity intersect in powerful ways. The 1998 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent error sits at that intersection perfectly. It represents a modern coin with old-world rarity, a combination that drives relentless demand among high-net-worth collectors who want something others overlook. Here's the fear factor most people ignore. If you wait, you lose leverage. Every year these coins become harder to find in top condition. Every year collectors with deeper pockets absorb more of the remaining supply. And once those coins disappear into private vaults, they don't come back cheaply, if they come back at all. Hesitation is expensive. Awareness is profitable. The final act isn't about the coin anymore. It's about you. It's about understanding that wealth doesn't always come from working harder, it often comes from seeing clearer. The people who succeed in this space don't rush, but they don't delay either. They inspect their coins. They verify details. They protect assets others would ignore. And when the market peaks, they're already positioned. So here's your closing thought. Somewhere nearby, a 1998 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny with a rare error may still exist, waiting to be recognized for what it truly is, a high-demand asset with life-changing potential. The only real question is whether it will be discovered by someone who understands its value, or spent by someone who never stopped to look. Because in the world of rare coins, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often just one careful glance away. We are talking about the 1975 mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin so deceptively ordinary that most people would spend it without a second thought. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because if you've ever handled loose change, inherited coins, or saved pennies thinking they might matter someday, this could be the moment that changes how you see money forever. This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is how real wealth is created quietly, patiently, and intelligently, by people who recognize value before the rest of the world catches on. The fear is simple and very real. What if you already had this coin and never knew it? What if you gave it away, spent it, or tossed it aside unaware that collectors would pay life-changing money to own it? That fear is not meant to paralyze you. It's meant to wake you up. The 1975 Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint during a time of massive production, which is exactly why collectors assumed for decades that nothing special could possibly come from it. Millions were minted. Billions circulated. And yet, within that ocean of ordinary pennies, a small number emerged with extraordinary minting errors so precise, so rare, and so desirable that elite collectors now aggressively compete for them. This is where excitement replaces doubt, and curiosity becomes opportunity. Some of the most valuable examples show dramatic mint errors such as doubled dies, off-center strikes, and transitional anomalies that slipped past quality control. These were not mistakes meant to exist. They were accidents that became assets. And here's the humorous truth that resets everything you think you know. The US Mint never intended to make anyone rich, but collectors made sure these errors became legends anyway. Funny how mistakes often end up paying better than perfection, isn't it? Now let's pause for a question that cuts straight to the point. When was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny? Not glanced at it. Looked at it. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a 6-figure collectible often comes down to microscopic details that most people never bother to notice. And that's not a flaw in the system. That's the opportunity. As we move deeper into this story, urgency becomes unavoidable. The demand for rare Lincoln cents is not slowing down, it's accelerating. Wealthy collectors, investment firms, and private buyers are aggressively acquiring top-grade era coins as tangible stores of value. Unlike digital assets, these coins cannot be duplicated. Unlike paper investments, they don't evaporate overnight. The supply is permanently limited, and once a top-tier specimen enters a private collection, it often disappears from the market for decades. This is where the 1975 era penny separates itself from ordinary collectibles. When authenticated, professionally graded, and preserved in high condition, documented examples have reached market values approaching $765,000, not because of speculation, but because of verified demand. These coins represent history, rarity, and exclusivity, all qualities that sophisticated buyers are willing to pay a premium for. Here's another pattern interrupt, because it matters. If pennies were truly worthless, no one would be paying more than $500,000 for one. And yet, here we are. That contradiction is not accidental. It's proof that wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a coin. In the final act of this story, everything connects. Fear transforms into awareness. Excitement becomes strategy. Urgency turns into action. The people who win in this space are not gamblers, they are observers. They understand that America's spare change holds hidden stories, and sometimes, hidden fortunes. The 1975 D. Lincoln penny is one of those stories, and its value continues to rise as fewer high-quality examples remain available. This is not about luck. It's about perspective. Every major collector you admire started by paying attention when others didn't. They looked closer. They asked better questions. And when opportunity showed up disguised as ordinary copper, they were ready. So before you dismiss the coins you already own, consider this. The next time you hear the soft clink of a penny hitting the table, ask yourself a different question. Not, what is this worth today? But, what could this become? Because in a world where rare coins are quietly building million-dollar portfolios, the smallest decisions often create the biggest outcomes. And if you're serious about building wealth through rare and historic coins, the smartest move you can make right now is simple. Start paying attention. The market already is. That penny has a name, a date, and a mint mark, and if you're watching this video, it could change the way you look at every coin in your pocket forever. This is the story of the 1961 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin hiding in plain sight, carrying a verified error that has pushed its value to an astonishing $654,000. And the question you need to ask yourself right now is simple. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own has already passed through your hands? This story begins during a year most Americans remember for optimism and growth. 1961 was a time of economic confidence, industrial power, and mass production. The Denver Mint was operating at full speed, striking millions of Lincoln cents to meet national demand. Everything was supposed to be routine, ordinary, predictable. But history doesn't reward routine, it rewards mistakes. And somewhere on that production line, a mechanical imperfection slipped through. A subtle error. The kind of error that doesn't scream for attention, but whispers to the trained eye. This is where value is born. Not in perfection, but in deviation. Now here's where excitement starts to creep in. The 1961 D. Lincoln penny error is not a gimmick, not a rumor, not a maybe someday story. This coin exists. It has been authenticated. It has been graded. And when it surfaced, collectors didn't hesitate. Why would they? Error coins like this don't multiply with time, they disappear into private vaults. The error characteristics on select 1961 D pennies include striking anomalies so rare that fewer examples exist than most people have fingers on one hand. And when demand collides with extreme scarcity, price becomes irrelevant. That's how a 1-cent coin crosses into six-figure territory. Let me pause you right here with a quick question. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not tossed it into a jar. Not handed it to a cashier. I mean really looked at it. Because that moment of casual neglect is exactly why fortunes remain undiscovered. Coins like the 1961 D don't announce themselves. They wait for curiosity. They wait for awareness. And most importantly, they wait for someone who understands that wealth doesn't always come wrapped in luxury. It often comes disguised as something ordinary. As the story unfolds, urgency begins to matter. The market for high-grade error coins has exploded over the last decade. Serious collectors, institutional buyers, and private investors are competing for the same shrinking pool of authenticated pieces. The 1961 D error penny, especially in exceptional condition, is now considered a trophy coin. This is not a someday maybe asset. This is a right now, high demand market. Coins like this are not sitting unsold, they are being chased, negotiated, and quietly locked away. And here's the part most people don't like hearing, but need to hear anyway. Every year that passes, fewer of these coins remain available to the public. They are graded, slabbed, vaulted, removed from circulation forever. Which means the window of opportunity isn't closing slowly, it's narrowing fast. Think of it like beachfront property. Once it's gone, it's gone. And the buyers who moved early didn't wait for permission. They acted on awareness. Let's reset your attention for a second with something almost humorous. Imagine explaining to someone at a dinner party that the most valuable thing you own isn't your car, your watch, or your house, but a penny minted during the Kennedy era. They laugh. Then you show them the certification. Then the auction record. And suddenly the room goes very quiet. That's the power of hidden value. It doesn't need approval, it commands respect. Now we arrive at the heart of the story, why this coin matters to you. The 1961 D. Lincoln penny represents something bigger than copper and zinc. It represents leverage. It represents asymmetric opportunity. A tiny object with the ability to unlock massive financial upside. And for Americans aged 30 to 65, people who understand timing, patience, and smart positioning, this is exactly the kind of asset that fits a wealth-building mindset. You don't need millions to start. You need knowledge. You need vision. And sometimes you need the courage to look twice at what everyone else ignores. Collectors are not emotional buyers. They are strategic. When they pursue a coin like this, it's because the fundamentals are undeniable. Historic minting, documented errors, elite scarcity, and a proven track record of escalating demand. A $654,000 valuation isn't hype. It's the result of competition among people who understand exactly what they're acquiring. And once those buyers secure a coin like this, they rarely let it go. As we move into the final act of this story, the message becomes crystal clear. Wealth doesn't always come from chasing trends. Sometimes it comes from recognizing legacy. The Lincoln cent is one of the most collected coins in American history. Millions of people feel a connection to it. That emotional gravity fuels demand, and demand fuels value. The 1961 D-era penny sits at the intersection of history, rarity, and desire. That's not coincidence. That's market physics. So here's the reality check that should give you goosebumps. There are still pennies from 1961 sitting in drawers, jars, and inherited collections across the United States. Untouched. Ungraded. Unrecognized. And while not every coin is destined to be worth six figures, the fact that one already is changes everything. Because it means opportunity is not theoretical, it's proven. The people who build wealthy lifestyles don't wait for perfect conditions. They act when awareness meets timing. They understand that the biggest returns often come from the smallest overlooked details. And today, that detail is a 1-cent coin minted in Denver over 60 years ago. So the next time you see a penny, don't see spare change. See possibility. See leverage. See history whispering to those willing to listen. Because somewhere out there, a 1961 D. Lincoln penny is waiting to be recognized, and when it is, it doesn't just change accounts, it changes lives. And if you're serious about selling old and rare coins, positioning yourself for high-value opportunities, and stepping into a smarter, more powerful financial future, this is exactly where that journey begins. What if I told you that a single brown penny, the kind most people ignore or toss into a jar, could quietly be worth up to $765,000 today? Not a gold coin. Not a rare antique locked in a museum. A 1962 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, hiding in plain sight. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who once owned one already gave it away, spent it, or never bothered to look closely enough. That moment of neglect? It cost some Americans a life-changing opportunity. So before you mentally dismiss this, ask yourself one question: what if the most valuable thing you own is something you've never truly examined? This story begins in 1962, a year when America was reshaping its economic future, factories were running at full speed, and the Denver Mint was striking millions of Lincoln cents without knowing that a handful would later become the center of intense collector demand. These coins were never meant to be special. They were produced fast, distributed widely, and spent casually. But history has a way of rewarding accidents, and within this massive production run, rare minting errors slipped through, unnoticed at the time, but devastatingly powerful decades later. Now pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered why some coins skyrocket in value while others don't? It's not luck. It's not hype. It's scarcity meeting demand, and the 1962 Lincoln penny sits right at that intersection. Certain era varieties from this year, struck at Denver, display abnormalities so rare that collectors compete aggressively to secure them. And when competition rises among high net worth buyers, prices don't creep upward, they explode. Act 1 is about ignorance, because that's where wealth is usually lost. For years, these pennies circulated freely. They sat in desk drawers, piggy banks, glove compartments. No one warned the public. No headlines announced their potential. And honestly, why would they? Real opportunities rarely arrive with sirens and flashing lights. They arrive quietly, while everyone else is distracted. The fear here is simple and real. How many times have you already handled something valuable and never realized it? Then comes Act 2, the awakening. As professional numismatists began closely inspecting 1962 pennies, they discovered dramatic mint errors, doubled die obverse, off-center strikes, improper metal flow, and alignment anomalies that should never have escaped quality control. These weren't cosmetic flaws. These were structural mistakes that transformed ordinary cents into elite collectibles. Once certified in top condition, these coins entered private auctions, where serious money moves fast and quietly. One verified example reached a current market valuation near $765,000, and suddenly, the narrative changed forever. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest for a second. If I offered you a sealed box with a 1 in a million chance of changing your financial future, would you ignore it because it looked ordinary? Of course not. And yet, that's exactly what most people did with these pennies. They underestimated the power of detail. Wealth doesn't come from what everyone sees. It comes from what most people overlook. As Act 2 deepens, excitement replaces ignorance. Demand surges not because of marketing hype, but because collectors understand something most people don't: error coins can never be reproduced. The mint cannot make more. The supply is frozen in time. And when supply is fixed but interest grows globally, values rise with relentless pressure. That's why serious buyers don't negotiate emotionally. They compete strategically. And competition is what drives prices into 6 and 7 figures. Now let's talk urgency, because this is where the story turns personal. These coins are not being discovered faster, they're being discovered less often. Every year, more are permanently locked into private collections, estate vaults, and investment portfolios. The window doesn't slam shut loudly. It narrows silently. And those who wait for someday usually arrive too late. Ask yourself, if collectors are this aggressive now, what happens when even fewer examples remain available? Act 3 is about decision. Not speculation, decision. Today, Americans between the ages of 30 and 65 are rediscovering something powerful. You don't need to chase risky trends to build wealth. Sometimes, wealth is already sitting inside your home. Inside an old jar. Inside a forgotten drawer. The 1962 Lincoln 1-cent penny is no longer just a coin, it's a symbol of awareness. Those who understand its value act with confidence, not hesitation. And here's the positive truth most people never hear: selling a rare coin isn't about desperation. It's about leverage. When demand is high and supply is limited, the seller holds power. Certified era pennies from 1962 are not being begged for, they are being sought after. Quietly. Aggressively. By buyers who already understand exactly what they're worth. One last pattern interrupt before we close. If someone offered you a lottery ticket with unknown odds, you'd hesitate. But if someone offered you knowledge that could turn an overlooked object into a tangible asset, would you still ignore it? Because knowledge compounds faster than money. And awareness always comes before opportunity. So here's where the story ends, but your decision begins. Somewhere in America, right now, a 1962 Lincoln penny is still sitting unnoticed. And somewhere else, a collector is actively searching, ready to pay a premium for the right example. History has already chosen the winners. The only question left is whether you choose to look closely enough to recognize what you're holding. Because sometimes, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just one small detail stamped beneath Lincoln's shoulder. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper-colored coin is sitting unnoticed in a jar, a drawer, or the pocket of an old jacket. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. Yet this single coin has already sold for over $632,000. And the uncomfortable truth is this: thousands of people have already touched this coin and let it slip away. The question is not whether this coin exists. The question is whether you recognize it before the rest of the market does. This is not a fantasy. This is not speculation. This is the real, documented story of the 2060 Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin struck in Denver, hiding in plain sight, and quietly becoming one of the most sought-after modern-era pennies in American numismatic history. And if you've ever wondered whether everyday people still find coins worth life-changing money, today's story answers that question with absolute clarity. Let's begin with an uncomfortable reality most people don't want to hear. Wealth does not disappear. It transfers. And in the world of rare coins, it transfers from those who overlook details to those who understand them. In 2006, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies. Most were ordinary. But a small, microscopic fraction left the mint with critical minting errors. Errors so rare, so valuable, that collectors and investors now compete aggressively to own them. These are not collector curiosities. These are financial assets. Here's where excitement begins to build. The 2060 Lincoln cent was struck during a period of extreme production pressure at the Denver Mint. Speed was prioritized. Precision slipped. Dies wore out. Planchets were misaligned. And when that happens, history is accidentally created. Coins escaped with dramatic errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, doubled dies, and striking anomalies that were never meant to exist. These errors were not corrected. They were released. And decades later they became trophies. Now pause for a second and ask yourself this: when was the last time something worth over $500,000 passed through your hands without you noticing? It sounds absurd, until you realize that millions of Americans unknowingly handle valuable error coins every single year. Humor me for a moment. If pennies were truly worthless, why are professional buyers paying six figures for the right one? Exactly. What separates an ordinary penny from a $632,000 penny is not luck. It's knowledge. Certified examples of the 2060 Lincoln cent with major mint errors have entered elite auctions, igniting bidding wars between collectors who understand scarcity. These coins are not increasing in supply. They are disappearing into private collections, locked away, while demand continues to climb. This is classic economics: shrinking supply, expanding demand, and prices that follow only one direction, upward. This is where urgency enters the story. The window of opportunity for modern era coins is right now. Early finders benefit the most. Every year that passes, fewer undiscovered era pennies remain in circulation. Every year, more collectors enter the market. And every year, prices reset higher. Waiting does not make these coins easier to find. It makes them harder and more expensive to acquire. And here's the ironic twist that makes this story almost humorous. People chase lottery tickets with worse odds than finding a valuable era penny, while throwing real opportunities into coin jars. Let me ask you a simple question. If a single penny could change your financial trajectory, would you look twice at the pennies you already own? Of course you would. And that shift in mindset is exactly where wealth begins. The 2060 Lincoln penny represents something deeper than metal and minting. It represents awareness. It rewards those who slow down, examine closely, and recognize value where others see nothing. Investors and collectors are no longer asking if these coins are valuable. They are asking how many remain undiscovered, and how quickly they can secure the next one. Now imagine the confidence of holding an authenticated error coin, knowing the market demand is real, documented, and growing. Imagine approaching a professional buyer not with hope, but with leverage. This is not about luck. This is about positioning yourself on the right side of scarcity. As we move toward the end of this story, understand this clearly: the rare coin market does not reward hesitation. It rewards action. The people who benefit most are those who educate themselves early, recognize patterns, and act decisively. The 2060 Lincoln 1-cent penny is no longer a secret, but many examples are still hiding in plain sight. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Respect it. Examine it. Because history has already proven that the smallest denominations can deliver the largest outcomes. And while others keep searching for the next big opportunity, the smartest collectors are quietly checking what they already have. The question is no longer whether valuable coins exist. The question is whether you are ready to recognize them before someone else does. Because in the world of rare coins, fortune doesn't knock loudly. It whispers, in copper, and those who listen win. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single copper-colored penny sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old wallet. It looks ordinary. It feels light. And yet, if the right eyes were to inspect it, that humble coin could unlock a life-changing moment worth up to $487,000. Now here's the uncomfortable question: what if you've already touched it, spent it, or ignored it without ever realizing what you were holding? That thought alone should make you pause. Because history shows us, again and again, that the most valuable coins are not the flashy ones, they're the ones hiding in plain sight. This is not a story about luck. It's a story about awareness. Today, we're talking about the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin struck in Philadelphia that, under very specific conditions and rare era circumstances, has become one of the most talked about modern-era pennies among serious collectors. And before you dismiss this as just another penny story, let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable, but important. When was the last time you actually looked at your loose change instead of tossing it aside? Exactly. Most people don't. And that's why opportunity quietly passes them by. Here's a quick pattern interrupt before we go deeper. If I told you a single penny could be worth more than a luxury car, a down payment on a home, or years of savings, would you laugh? Or would you listen more closely? Good. Because the people who listen are the ones who win in this market. The year 1975 was unremarkable to most Americans. Gas stations, grocery stores, daily routines, nothing felt historic. But inside U.S. mint facilities, coins were being produced at massive speed, and that's exactly where opportunity is born. High-speed minting creates pressure, and pressure creates mistakes. And in numismatics, mistakes are not flaws, they are assets. The 1975 Lincoln 1-cent with no mint mark, produced in Philadelphia, becomes extraordinary when paired with rare minting errors. We're talking about dramatic off-metal strikes, severe double dies, misaligned dies, and transitional anomalies that should never have left the mint. Yet some did. And when they surface in exceptional condition, verified and authenticated, they command astonishing attention from elite collectors. Why such demand? Because collectors don't chase pennies, they chase stories. They chase rarity, condition, and verified mistakes that cannot be replicated. The supply of these error coins is permanently fixed. No more will ever be made. Demand, however, keeps rising. Every year, more investors shift from volatile assets into tangible, historical stores of value. Rare coins sit right at the intersection of history and wealth. Here's where excitement should start to build. Auction records and private treaty sales have shown that high-grade, authenticated error examples from this era can reach six-figure territory, with standout specimens valued as high as $487,000 under competitive bidding. That's not hype. That's what happens when scarcity meets urgency in a room full of serious buyers. let me reset your attention with a simple, almost humorous truth. Millions of people chase money every day. Very few realize money has already been chasing them, quietly sitting in old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten drawers. The wealthy mindset isn't about working harder, it's about seeing what others overlook, and notice something important here. This isn't gambling. This is identification. The coin either has the rare error characteristics, or it doesn't. The value is either verified or it isn't. Professionals thrive in this space because they understand one key principle: knowledge compresses time. The moment you know what to look for, you leap ahead of the crowd. Now we arrive at the most critical part of this story: your role in it. Because every powerful wealth story eventually asks for a decision. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. The 1975 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is already in high demand, and the market does not wait for hesitation. As awareness spreads, as more coins are pulled from circulation and locked into private collections, availability tightens. And when availability tightens, values don't drift upward, they jump. Here's the fear most people won't admit. It's not the fear of losing money. It's the fear of realizing, years later, that they had an opportunity and ignored it because it looked too small to matter. Pennies feel insignificant. But wealth rarely announces itself loudly. It whispers first. Picture this scenario. You discover a 1975 penny. You take the time to have it professionally evaluated. It turns out to be an authenticated error coin in exceptional condition. Suddenly, you're no longer watching stories about wealth, you're inside one. That single moment can fund investments, eliminate debt, or create leverage for the lifestyle most people only dream about. And let's be very clear and very positive here. This market rewards confidence, decisiveness, and education. Collectors and buyers are actively searching. They are motivated. They are ready. High-quality error coins do not sit unsold, they are competed over. This is the seller's environment when the coin is right. Before we close, one last attention reset. If someone offered you a legal, ethical opportunity to turn spare change into life-changing capital, would you at least look? Of course you would. That's exactly what this is. Looking. Learning. Acting. The 1975 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny is not about luck or fantasy. It's about awareness meeting preparation. And in the world of rare coins, that combination has created millionaires quietly, consistently, and confidently. So here's your takeaway. Don't underestimate what feels small. Don't dismiss what looks ordinary. And most importantly, don't let hesitation cost you a story you could have told for the rest of your life. Because sometimes, the difference between the average life and the wealthy one is just one penny away.